Hi, how are you? I hope you are doing well. I'm the amateur logician, and we're going to review some basic introductory predicate logic. We're going to take a look at what I call the fundamental forms. And those include, for example, all S's are P's, no S's are P's, some S's are P's, and some S's are not P's. But it also includes examples like man is good, everything is good, nothing is good, something is not good. Predicate logic is definitely a step up from propositional logic. Propositional logic only allows us to deal with the relations between propositions. In that sense, it is a truth functional logic, it's sentential logic, it deals with the connectives, and that's it. But in predicate logic, we can work within a given proposition. So we can take a proposition, a given proposition, a single proposition, and think about the predicates or properties contained within. And in general, we use uppercase letters to represent predicates or properties. And we can also think about the subject of a proposition. And in general, we will use lowercase letters to represent a subject. So let's take the fundamental form, say man is good as an example. So note that good is the predicate and man is the subject. We're predicating goodness to man as a property, so to speak. Let's translate that into the symbolic language of predicate logic. We can get capital G, lowercase m. Note that the predicate, good, we assign the uppercase letter, capital G. And man, the subject, we assign the lowercase letter, lowercase m. Moreover, in predicate logic, we have quantifiers. On the one hand, we have the existential quantifier. For some, we use the backwards-looking E symbol. So there exists an x, or for some x. An x we call a dummy variable. And a dummy variable can represent anything whatsoever. And in this sense, if I say there exists an x such that, or there exists a y such that, or there exists a z such that, x, y, and z are interchangeable. They say the same thing, really. And usually we just use the letters x, y, or z for dummy variables. Moreover, with the existential quantifier, we apply existence. So this implies existence. Hence the term existential. We then have the universal quantifier for all x. And we use the symbol, the upside down A. So this here represents for all x, and once again, x is the dummy variable. So if I say for all x, or for all y, or for all z, those really say the same thing. But the universal quantifier doesn't imply existence. That's important to note. The existential quantifier implies that some x does in fact exist, but the universal quantifier doesn't imply that x in fact exists. So let's go back to our fundamental forms, our examples. Take everything is good. So good is the predicate. But this time we're saying that everything is good. So we need a quantifier. And with a quantifier comes a quantified variable like x, the dummy variable. So I can say that for all x, x is good. So notice capital G represents our predicate good, and it's being predicated of x, of that variable. So for all x, x is good. Everything is good. Or take nothing is good. So here we would get for all x, it is not the case that x is good. Now we have something is good. It's a particular proposition, we might say. It's existential. So we need the existential quantifier. So we'll say there exists an x such that x is good. Capital G represents our predicate good, and it's being predicated of x. It's a quantified variable. And then we have something is not good. So there exists an x such that it is not the case that x is good. Now our four final fundamental forms appear on this square of opposition. We have for all x, if x is an s, then x is a p. For all x, if x is an s, then x is not a p. There exists an x such that x is an s and x is a p. And there exists an x such that x is an s and x is not a p. Or in other words, we have all S's are P's for that proposition. Here we have no S's are P's. Here we have some S's are P's. And here we have some S's are not P's. Or we might say there exists an S that is not a P. Now, one thing I want to note here is that this conditional, this hypothetical here in this universal proposition, and this universal proposition is very, very important. So let's compare two examples. For all x, mx, and rx. And we're going to compare that to for all x, mx, arrow, rx. So this right here says that for all x, x is both m and r. So everything is both an m and an r. And this here says that only if x is an m, then it is an r. So they say quite different things. Let's say this represents all men are rational. So capital M for men, capital R for rational. For all x, if x is a man, then x is rational. But this proposition here would say that everything is a man and rational. In other words, everything out there in the universe is both a man and rational, which is clearly false. So these propositions are not logically identical or equivalent. They say something quite different. Let's think of another example or two. Let's say we have the proposition, a man is rational. And then we'll have the proposition, a man is in the house. Well, this second proposition, a man is in the house, is existential. So if we're going to translate that into predicate logic, we would say there exists an x such that x is a man and x is in the house. So we have man being predicated of x. We have in the house as being predicated of x. So there exists an x such that x is a man and x is in the house. Now, a man is rational. It seems we're talking about any man, any generic man. So it's a universal proposition. So we would say, for all x, if x is a man, then x is rational. So being a man is a predicate of x. Being rational is a predicate of x. But we have that conditional, that if-then. So for all x, if x is a man, then x is rational. Whereas in the second example, a man is in the house, we have something that's existential. So there exists an x such that x is a man and x is in the house. So this is an introduction to predicate logic, dealing with what I'm going to call the fundamental forms of basic predicate logic. I'm the Amateur Logician from amateurlogician.com. Good luck to you and be well.